Here it is, everyone, the last video lesson, exercise 148, chapter 34, and we are on page 245. Pretty close to the appendix at this point. It will be difficult to ransom the men until we acquire money. This is our temporal clause, and we're going to be using either heos, mekri, or este here. Doesn't really matter which one. It will be difficult. So it's been a while since we've actually seen this construction, right? With kalapon, neuter, because we're going to be working with an infinitive, which is always neuter. But now we need to make the verb that sets its time, the verb of being, in the future. So the future of Amy, as we know, is esomai, but that's first person singular. We want third person singular, so it'll be esetai. Kalapon esetai, difficult it will be to ransom. So to ransom, or I ransom, is luomai. We need to turn that into an infinitive, but a middle infinitive. So it's not luain, but luesthai. Difficult it will be to ransom the men. And note also with the luesthai, as I keep on writing here, morphologically it's ambiguous whether this is middle or passive. It all depends on what follows it. If we had it's difficult to be freed by idiots, something like that. You could conceivably have that, but as soon as you have this accusative direct object beyond, you know that it's middle and you know that this has to mean ransom. All right, now until, let's use heos. And let's think about our situation here. It will be difficult to ransom the men until we acquire money. So we have a future verb here, a kind of general sort of condition here. This is going to be a future more vivid, where we've got a future verb or equivalent in the esetai, and then we're going to want an on here, plus a subjunctive. So we want a subjunctive of the verb kataomai. So we could go ahead and use this first principle part, but I think acquire money, this might be a one-time deal. We'll want to be using the aorist form, which has the stem kates. And then we're just going to put on our first person plural subjunctive ending, kates somen, until we acquire money. And kremata almost always has the article, as far as I know, in Greek. So it's kremata. Kalapon esetai, luestai, tus andras heos an katesomen ta kremata. Good, not as bad as we might have thought. As long as a storm is dangerous, we will not go out of the harbor. Here's our temporal clause here. As long as a storm is dangerous, then there's kind of a comma, we will not go out of the harbor. So let's use mekri this time, start shaking things up. The storm. So remember that the storm in Greek is the same word as we have for winter, right? It's chemon. And the accent, I think, yeah, it falls on the omega, and this is a masculine word noun. So mekri ho chemon, until the storm, or so long as the storm is dangerous. So dangerous is, of course, kendunos, and that's masculine to agree with the chemon, and then esti. Let's keep it esti for now, but let's think, we need to make sure that we have the right mood and tense here. But esti can work. We will not go out of the harbor. So we will not go. That sounds awful, future more vivid yet again, meaning that we'll want this verb not to be an indicative, but a subjunctive. And because we'll want to make it general, we'll also want to put in that post-positive on. Mekri an ho chemon kindunos. Now, simply a. We will not go out. So go out is going to be x plus erkomai. Although I guess we could use the form of the verb Amy now, because as we're seeing Amy in the Amy to go, the accented form, is more often used to do verbs of future than erkomai. Shelmerdine makes that point. So we'll end up having two options here, right? We'll either have ex men to go out, or we could still use erkomai. There's nothing wrong with that. We remember that it's long and deponent future form. So, I mean, this is your option, right? Eximen or exileosometha. We will go, and of course this is not, so we'll want an uk in front of both of these. Uk eximen, out of the harbor. So this is going to be a genitive of separation. We're going to want to use the genitive form. And of course, our word for harbor is limain in the nominative, but then the genitive is limenos, and it's neuter. So go out of the harbor. Good. Mekri an hochemon kindunos uk eximen or exileosometha tu limenos. Excellent. Next sentence. We're moving fast. The general arrived before the cavalry attacked. So before the cavalry attacked, that's going to be our temporal clause. And before, we're going to want to use prin, and we're going to want to use it with the infinitive. And as Shelmerdine points out, almost always this will be the aorist infinitive. The present infinitive connotes connotation, attempts, or very clearly repeated action. So that's not what we have here. Cavalry attacked. This is one-time deal. So the general arrived. Ho strategos. Remember, arrived in the aorist. We're going to see this a lot. Afikomein in the first person, and then for the third person singular, afikato. The general arrived before prin the cavalry, and here because it's not the subject of the full sentence, and we're going to have attacked be a aorist infinitive, pros balein, right? And that looks kind of strange as an aorist infinitive, but that's because it's a strong aorist, not a weak aorist ending in I or psi. So we've got a strong aorist here. We need an accusative subject. So we'll have tous, and then with these contract third declension nouns, it's just going to be hippes right there. So hostrategos afikato prin, tous hippes pros balein. The general arrived before the cavalry attacked. Last sentence, final sentence of it all. Why did you cease from your work before I ordered you to? It's a good question for the end, especially when I've been kind of cheating on this chapter and being easy, because it's past midnight right now. I better go to sleep anyway. So why did you cease from your work before I ordered you to? Here's our temporal clause, before, and again we're going to want to use prin with an infinitive here, but note, so that's going to be the ordering. So we're going to want something to do with kaleo. And then we're going to need a pronoun, an accusative pronoun for I. Let's see if you all remember what that is. I'll let that percolate while I do the rest of the sentence. So why? Start off with an initial T. Did you cease? So that's simple in its aspect. So it's aorist. And then what is cease from? Well, this is the middle, of course, of our verb to stop, pauo, so pauomai. And in the aorist, that's going to be a pausa, but turned into the middle. So what is that? Well, that's a pausa main in the first person. But if we wanted to make the second person, this would be a pausaso originally, but that's one of these intervocalic sigmas. It's going to be dropping out, and we've got a contraction between alpha and the omicron, resulting in an omega. So even though that looks almost like a subjunctive or a future with the also, indeed what we're looking at is a second person middle aorist. Why did you cease from your work? And you cease from work in the genitive. So let's assume it's singular work. So we'd have to ergu from ta ergon, that's the noun, and then your. Well, we want the possessive pronoun here. We've already established that you here in this sentence that we're doing is singular. So we want sauce, say, saw, kind of standard third declension, or first and second declension adjective. And then, of course, this will just all rhyme. Tu su ergu. Why did you cease from your work before prin I, and here we'll want eme, the pronoun, ordered. So, and then again, this is probably going to be an aorist infinitive because this is a one-time deal. So we'll take it from kaleusa, but then we want to make that the aorist infinitive, so kaleusai, before I ordered. And then you, that's going to be a straight up accusative, so se. And then two, we need that in English because to kind of capture it's you know, well, I guess Winston Churchill would be upset here because we're ending a sentence with a preposition, but that's a preposition that's part of the infinitive. Before I ordered you to do that, namely to cease from your work. But Greek doesn't need that at all. We can stop here, although note that we can't just have a full stop. We need a circumflex, not circumflex, what are these called? Not a semicolon, in order to capture the question mark in the English. So, ti epauso, why did you cease from your work before I ordered you? Fantastic, everyone. Don't cease from your work of Greek. Keep this up. I've really appreciated all the posts I've been able to receive in the comments section of YouTube. I know these aren't professional videos. These aren't intended to be, but I do appreciate that it has been helping out some people, and feel free also to lodge your complaints. I think they're fair, and you know, it's not hate speech. I don't consider it if you say, oh, your handwriting stinks and everything. I say, well, yeah, that's probably true. That's a fair warning for everyone who will join in on this Greek adventure. And I'm sorry that at least as I post this video in the beginning of May 2014, that there's a huge chunk of Shelmerdine's text missing because I just got too busy with the school year. But again, I'm here. I'm Al Duncan. Oh God, I can't even spell my own name. That's how late it is in the evening. Al Duncan. And currently I'm teaching at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. Lovely Salt Lake City. It's a great place to be. So do look me up. Pass on these videos to other students who might be taking Greek with you, or somebody you might who wants to try to take Greek on their own. It's a very challenging language. You recognize that. I mean, if you've sat through all these lessons, you know how hard all this can be. But it is rewarding, and especially the literature that you're going to be able to get to. Even in the next semester, if you start your second year of Greek at any university, you're going to be encountering some of the greatest literature ever written in its original language. You're breaking all sorts of time boundaries, space boundaries, cultural boundaries by reading these things. It's a wonderful experience. I wish you all the best with it. As they say in Greek, sayonara.